The research station Horizon 9 hung like a delicate crystal against the backdrop of a swirling amber-green nebula. Its modular design reflected humanity's latest advancements in deep space engineering, a perfect blend of functional architecture and aesthetic precision. Emma Thompson moved through the station's central laboratory, her daughter Lily trailing behind her, wide-eyed and curious. "Look, Mom," Lily whispered, pressing her hand against the transparent aluminum viewport. Her breath created a small cloud of condensation on the surface. The gas clouds looked like they're dancing. Emma smiled, momentarily distracted from her work. At 10 years old, Lily possessed an insatiable curiosity that reminded Emma of herself. The girl had already memorized star charts, understood basic xenobiological concepts, and could name more alien species than most graduate students. She wasn't just accompanying her mother. She was learning, absorbing, exploring. The station represented the pinnacle of human Zorak collaborative research. Two species, once separated by incomprehensible differences, now worked side by side to unlock the mysteries of galactic biology. Zorak researchers moved gracefully through the laboratories, their translucent exoskeletons catching the artificial light in mesmerizing patterns. Their communication, a complex blend of bioluminescent signals and subsonic vibrations, had taken years for humans to partially understand. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, a Zorak synorchaeologist with remarkable empathy for human communication, approached Emma. His external nerve clusters shifted from a calm blue to an inquisitive violet. A color change Emma had learned signified deep intellectual engagement. The preliminary data from the Kepler 786 microorganism samples is extraordinary, he communicated, his translator rendering his complex biological language into precise English. "We're looking at a potential breakthrough in understanding panspermia across multiple star systems." Lily listened intently, her fingers tracing complex diagrams on a holographic display. She was more than just a child on a research station. She was a budding scientist, absorbing every moment of discovery. The station's routine was a carefully choreographed dance of scientific exploration. Researchers from multiple species worked in harmonious concentration. Automated systems monitored environmental conditions, ensuring perfect conditions for delicate experiments. Quantum entanglement communication arrays maintained instantaneous links with research centers across human-controlled space. No one noticed the subtle changes in the external sensor readings. A minor fluctuation in quantum space, almost imperceptible, went unregistered by the station's sophisticated detection systems. Commander Sarah Bennett, head of station security, reviewed the day's logs with a practiced eye. Her military background, years of service in the Deep Space Exploration Corps, made her meticulous about potential threats. But even her trained instincts missed the microscopic anomalies that would later be recognized as the first signs of the incoming Krelvax assault. Lily approached her mother, holding a complex molecular model she had constructed. "Mom, I think I found a potential protein folding sequence that might explain the adaptive mechanisms in the Kepler 786 microorganisms." Emma studied the model, genuinely impressed. Her daughter's intuitive understanding of complex biological systems was remarkable. "Explain your reasoning," she encouraged, knowing that verbal articulation was as important as the theoretical construct. As Lily began to break down her hypothesis, the first energy signature appeared at the edge of the station's sensor range. A momentary distortion, barely a whisper in the vast electromagnetic spectrum. The station's ambient lighting flickered, just once, so briefly that most would have dismissed it as a minor power fluctuation. Dr. Rodriguez's nerve clusters suddenly shifted to a deep, alarming crimson, the Zorak biological equivalent of immediate threat detection. His translator crackled with an urgent message. Unexpected quantum displacement detected. Possible incoming. His words were cut short. The first Krelvax weapon struck with surgical precision. A concentrated quantum disruption pulse that instantly vaporized an entire section of the research station. No warning. No communication. Pure, calculated destruction. In that first moment, scientific collaboration, years of peaceful exploration, and human Zorak diplomatic progress meant nothing. The Krelvax had arrived, and their intention was absolute, total annihilation. Lily's hand was still raised, her molecular model slowly dissolving in her fingers as the first explosions began to tear the station apart. Emma's world would never be the same again. The United Earth Council chamber fell silent as the first transmission details of the Horizon 9 massacre were projected. Holographic displays showed fragmented images of destruction, twisted metal, dispersed molecular debris, and the cold statistical summary of total loss. 237 researchers from multiple species, reduced to nothing more than scattered atoms and painful memories. Emma Thompson stood before the council, her appearance a stark contrast to her usual composed scientific demeanor. Dark circles beneath her eyes spoke of sleepless nights. Her hands, once steady enough to manipulate microscopic biological samples, now trembled almost imperceptibly. The Krelvax did not simply attack a research station, Emma began, her voice low and controlled. They executed a calculated genocide. This was not a military engagement. This was murder. Ambassador Harold Reyes, representing the North American Continental Alliance, leaned forward. His weathered face reflected decades of diplomatic experience. We need concrete evidence before initiating any retaliatory action. Diplomatic channels must be explored first. A holographic representation of the Krelvax attack route materialized. Complex quantum displacement signatures danced across the three-dimensional map, revealing a level of technological precision that defied conventional understanding. Each movement had been calculated with mathematical perfection. No wasted energy, no unnecessary destruction. Just pure clinical elimination. They knew exactly what they were doing, Emma continued. The station's research could have revolutionized our understanding of interstellar ecosystem development. The Zorak collaborative teams were on the verge of breakthrough discoveries in adaptive biological systems. Dr. Michael Chung, head of the Xenobiological Research Council, interjected. The quantum communication logs are unprecedented. The Krelvax used a disruption technology we've never encountered. This wasn't just an attack. It was a demonstration. The chamber buzzed with a mix of fear, anger, and scientific curiosity. Humanity had encountered numerous alien civilizations, but never had they faced such a calculated act of genocide. The Krelvax had crossed a line that challenged every diplomatic protocol. Emma's personal communications implant began to pulse, a discrete signal indicating high-priority messages. Zorak diplomatic channels were lighting up across multiple quantum communication networks. The alien researchers were not responding with their traditional diplomatic restraint. They were angry. We have confirmation from Zorak High Command, a holographic representative announced. His translucent exoskeleton flickered with complex emotional signatures, waves of deep crimson and violent purple indicating unprecedented levels of collective rage. This attack was not an isolated incident. Our intelligence suggests similar attacks on research outposts across 3 star systems. The implications were staggering. This was not a random act of violence. This was a systematic campaign of elimination. Emma's mind raced. Her scientific background provided her a unique perspective. Where others saw a military challenge, she saw a complex system waiting to be understood, to be dismantled, to be defeated. We need more than just a military response, she said, her voice cutting through the mounting tension. We need a comprehensive strategy that goes beyond traditional warfare. Ambassador Reyes raised an eyebrow. Elaborate. The Krelvax believe they've demonstrated technological superiority, Emma explained. But they've made a fundamental miscalculation. They view warfare as a mathematical equation. We view it as something more. A complex, adaptive challenge that requires emotional intelligence, creativity, and an ability to transform grief into strategic innovation. The room fell silent. Emma knew she was offering more than a military strategy. She was proposing a fundamental reimagining of human response to external threats. "My daughter was on that station," she said, her voice suddenly cutting through the diplomatic murmur. "Along with every researcher who believed in peaceful exploration. They did not die so that we could submit diplomatic complaints. They died so that we could understand, adapt, and ultimately prevail." Zorak representatives responded with a complex bioluminescent display, a signal of complete alignment. Humanity's grief was now a shared experience. The collaborative research that the Krulvax sought to eliminate had created something far more powerful, a genuine interspecies alliance forged in the crucible of loss. Outside the council chamber, the first designs for a new class of research warfare vessels were already being drafted. Humanity was changing, and the galaxy would soon understand the true meaning of resilience. The transformation began in unlikely places. Detroit's abandoned automotive factories sprang back to life, their massive assembly lines reconfigured for spacecraft production overnight. Silicon Valley research centers worked in continuous shifts, developing technologies that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Every major city became a node in humanity's total war effort. Emma Thompson stood in the Central Innovative Technologies Complex, watching holographic displays that tracked global resource allocation. Massive quantum computing networks processed strategies, weapon designs, and logistical challenges at speeds that would have been impossible just months earlier. "We're not just building ships," she explained to General Marcus Webb, the newly appointed commander of Earth's expeditionary forces. "We're creating a completely new approach to interstellar conflict." The first wave of new spacecraft defied traditional design principles. Gone were the sleek, exploratory vessels of peaceful research. These were predatory machines, modular, adaptive, capable of reconfiguring mid-combat. Each ship contained integrated AI systems that could make tactical decisions faster than any biological command structure. Manufacturing centers that once produced consumer electronics now churned out advanced weapon systems. Nanofabrication plants worked around the clock, creating materials that could adapt to multiple environmental conditions. Entire industrial ecosystems were repurposed with military precision. Universities suspended traditional research. Every scientific discipline was redirected toward the war effort. Quantum physicists worked alongside materials engineers. Xenobiologists collaborated with weapons designers. The boundaries between academic disciplines dissolved, replaced by a singular focus. Global energy production underwent a radical transformation. Fusion reactors that had been theoretical prototypes became operational within weeks. Orbital solar collection arrays expanded exponentially, providing unprecedented energy capabilities. Every kilowatt was now a potential weapon in humanity's arsenal. "We're looking at a total restructuring of human potential," Dr. Elena Rodriguez, head of the Strategic Innovation Division, explained during a classified briefing. "The Krulvax attacked us believing we were a fractured, limited species. They'll soon understand their mistake." Recruitment took on a new dimension. Military academies were flooded with volunteers. But this wasn't a traditional military mobilization. Psychological profiling identified individuals with unique adaptive capabilities. Programmers, scientists, artists, those with demonstrated creativity became as valuable as traditional soldiers. Advanced neural interface technologies allowed unprecedented human-machine integration. Pilots could now think faster than their spacecraft could respond. Weapon systems became extensions of human consciousness, blurring the lines between biological intelligence and technological capability. Emma's research team developed breakthrough communication technologies. Quantum entanglement communication arrays allowed instantaneous information transfer across unprecedented distances. Traditional limitations of space communication became obsolete. "Information is our primary weapon," Emma told a gathering of global leaders. "The Krulvax understand mathematical precision. We understand something far more powerful, adaptive intelligence." Training simulations pushed human cognitive capabilities to their limits. Virtual reality environments allowed soldiers and support personnel to experience combat scenarios that challenged every traditional understanding of warfare. Psychological conditioning programs transformed fear into focused determination. Global resources were reallocated with surgical precision. Luxury industries collapsed. Consumer production was reduced to absolute necessities. Every resource, every human potential, was directed toward a single objective: developing the capability to respond to the Krulvax attack. The world's economic systems were redesigned. Traditional market economies gave way to a centralized, mission-focused resource allocation model. Artificial intelligence systems managed complex logistical challenges, ensuring maximum efficiency. Space construction facilities that had previously focused on research and communication satellites now became shipyards of unprecedented scale. Orbital manufacturing complexes worked continuously, producing spacecraft and support systems at rates that defied previous technological limitations. Emma watched the transformation with a mixture of scientific fascination and personal grief. Each advancement was a tribute to Lily and the researchers lost at Horizon 9. The war was no longer just about revenge. It was about proving the fundamental resilience of human potential. "We are not just preparing for a war," she would later tell her closest colleagues. "We are redefining what it means to be a spacefaring civilization." The galaxy would soon learn that humanity's greatest strength was not its technology, but its ability to transform collective pain into unprecedented innovation. The Zorak homeworld of Luminara pulsed with an energy unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. Massive bioarchitectural structures rose like living crystals, each building a complex organism that served both functional and aesthetic purposes. Bioluminescent networks coursed through the planet's surface, a living communication system that made human digital networks seem primitive by comparison. Emma Thompson stood on the central diplomatic platform, her human presence a stark contrast to the fluid, ever-shifting Zorak environment. Her neural interface translated not just language, but the complex emotional signatures that formed the core of Zorak communication. "We are no longer observers," declared Grand Resonance Keeper Zerakol, his external nerve clusters shifting through a spectrum of colors that conveyed layers of meaning beyond human comprehension. "We are participants." The transformation of the Zorak from a passive, research-oriented species to a military force was nothing short of revolutionary. Their biology, previously used for complex scientific exploration, now adapted to warfare with a speed that defied conventional understanding. Zorak biological technology merged with human engineering in ways that created entirely new combat capabilities. Where human technology relied on external systems, Zorak adaptations became living weapon platforms. Spacecraft that could heal themselves, communication networks that could predict and counter enemy movements, defensive systems that thought and responded like living organisms. "Our previous approach was a weakness," Zorakal explained to the gathered human military leadership. "We believed understanding was superior to confrontation. The Krulvax have demonstrated that some species only understand the language of absolute consequence." Quantum communication arrays developed through joint human-Zorak research created an unprecedented tactical network. Information moved faster than light, with predictive algorithms that could map potential conflict scenarios with miraculous accuracy. Each ship became more than a weapon. It was a living node in a vast, intelligent network. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, the Zorak synorchaeologist who had worked closely with Emma, now led the Joint Technological Integration Team. His understanding of both human and Zorak systems made him uniquely qualified to bridge the two species approaches. "We're not just combining technologies," he explained during a critical briefing. "We're creating an entirely new approach to interstellar conflict. The Krulvax understand mathematical precision. We understand something far more complex, adaptive intelligence that comes from emotional resonance." Training facilities became laboratories of unprecedented innovation. Human soldiers learned to interface with Zorak bioneural networks. Zorak warriors studied human tactical flexibility. Each species brought unique strengths that, when combined, created something entirely new. The first joint fleet demonstrations shocked military analysts across known space. Spacecraft that could reconfigure mid-battle. communication systems that predicted enemy movements before they occurred, defensive capabilities that made traditional weapon systems obsolete. Emma watched the first joint maneuvers with a mixture of scientific fascination and personal determination. Each advance was a tribute to Lily, to the researchers lost at Horizon 9. The alliance was more than a military collaboration. It was a living response to loss. Diplomatic channels across the galaxy began to shift. Other species watched in a mixture of fear and fascination as the human-Zorak alliance took shape. What had begun as a research collaboration was transforming into something far more profound, a new model of interstellar cooperation. "We are redefining what it means to be a spacefaring civilization," Emma told a gathering of joint military and scientific leadership. Her words carried a weight that went beyond simple rhetoric. The Zorak's biological communication networks provided insights that traditional intelligence gathering could never achieve. They could read quantum entanglement signatures, detect minute changes in spatial dynamics, and predict complex system behaviors with unprecedented accuracy. Weapon systems became living entities. Spacecraft could heal themselves, adapt to changing combat environments, and communicate in ways that made traditional military communication look like primitive signaling. The Krelvax believe they understand warfare, Zorakal told Emma during a private strategy session. They understand only one dimension. We are preparing to show them the true meaning of consequence. As the first joint fleet prepared for its initial deployment, the galaxy held its collective breath. This was more than a military operation. This was the birth of a new understanding of interstellar conflict. Humanity and the Zorak had become something entirely new, a hybrid intelligence that combined the best of two species, forged in the crucible of collective loss and shared determination. The Kepler frontier became the first true testing ground of the human-Zorak alliance. A complex star system with 13 planetary bodies, it represented a strategic choke point in Krelvax expansion territory. The first engagement would prove whether their collaborative strategies could withstand real combat conditions. Emma Thompson stood on the bridge of the command vessel Horizon's Promise, a deliberate naming that carried the weight of lost researchers. Her neural interface hummed with integrated Zorak biocommunication networks, allowing her to process tactical information at speeds that would have been impossible months earlier. The Krelvax fleet emerged from quantum space like a swarm of metallic predators. Their ship designs reflected a philosophy of pure mathematical efficiency, angular, precise, without a single unnecessary curve or projection. Each vessel was a weapon unto itself, designed for maximum destructive potential. "Incoming quantum displacement signatures," announced Lieutenant Sarah Chen, her voice calm despite the massive threat approaching. Multiple weapon platforms preparing to engage. The first moments of battle defied every previous understanding of space combat. Human Zorak ships moved as living organisms, their quantum-adaptive hull materials shifting and reconfiguring with each incoming threat. Where traditional military doctrine would call for rigid formations, these vessels danced, anticipating, redirecting, absorbing damage in ways that seemed to violate known physical laws. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez managed the integrated tactical network from a secondary command center. His Zorak neural clusters processed millions of potential combat scenarios simultaneously. "We are not defending," he communicated through the joint network. "We are revealing." Each engagement became a complex demonstration of adaptive intelligence. Krelvax weapon systems, designed with mathematical precision, found themselves countered by strategies that emerged from emotional intelligence and collaborative creativity. Ships could heal themselves, redirect energy, communicate threat assessments faster than enemy targeting systems could adapt. The battle for the Kepler frontier was more than a military engagement. It was a philosophical confrontation between two fundamentally different approaches to existence. Emma watched as their first major offensive took shape. Quantum communication networks allowed for tactical coordination that transcended traditional command structures. Individual ships became nodes in a living, thinking network. Each vessel contained integrated AI systems that could make tactical decisions faster than any biological command structure. Target identified. Lieutenant Chen announced. A Krelvax heavy cruiser, a vessel that had been considered invincible in previous galactic conflicts, suddenly found itself surrounded by a complex web of human Zorak ships. The attack was not about destruction. It was about demonstration. The Krelvax cruiser experienced systems failure in a manner that defied conventional understanding. Quantum communication networks disrupted its core operational systems. Adaptive energy fields redirected its primary weapon systems. Within moments, a vessel that represented the pinnacle of Krelvax military technology became nothing more than a drifting piece of complex machinery. "We are showing them the true meaning of warfare," Emma communicated through the neural network. Her words carried a weight that went beyond simple military strategy. Each engagement revealed more about the nature of the conflict. The Krelvax understood warfare as a mathematical equation, a balance of resources, weapon capabilities, tactical positioning. The human Zorak alliance understood it as a complex, adaptive system driven by emotion, creativity, and collective intelligence. Zorak biocommunication networks provided insights that traditional intelligence gathering could never achieve. They could read quantum entanglement signatures, detect minute changes in spatial dynamics, and predict complex system behaviors with unprecedented accuracy. The Kepler engagement lasted less than 3 standard hours. By the conclusion, the Krelvax had lost 17 major vessel platforms, approximately 60% of their deployed force. The human Zorak alliance lost 3 ships, with 2 able to be fully repaired through adaptive regeneration technologies. More importantly, they had sent a message that would resonate across the galaxy. "We are not seeking to destroy," Emma later explained in a classified debrief. "We are seeking to demonstrate the fundamental limitation of their understanding." As the first wave of battle concluded, the galaxy watched. The human Zorak alliance had done more than win a military engagement. They had revealed an entirely new approach to interstellar conflict, one driven by collaborative intelligence, emotional depth, and an understanding that true strength comes from adaptation, not rigid mathematical precision. The assault on the Krelvax home systems began with a silence that was more terrifying than any weapon. Quantum communication networks went dark. Stellar navigation systems became unpredictable. The fabric of space itself seemed to bend around the approaching human Zorak fleet. Emma Thompson stood on the bridge of the command vessel, her neural interfaces humming with a complex symphony of tactical information. Around her, the integrated crew, human and Zorak specialists working in perfect synchronization, moved with a precision that defied traditional military understanding. "Quantum displacement fields are stabilizing," announced Lieutenant Marcus Wong, his fingers dancing across holographic control interfaces. "We're approaching the outer defensive perimeter of the Krelvax primary system." The fleet was unlike anything previously conceived in galactic warfare. Each ship was a living, thinking entity. Adaptive hull materials could redistribute energy, heal damage, and reconfigure weapon systems in microseconds. The line between biological intelligence and technological capability had become completely blurred. Zorak bionavigation systems provided insights that traditional sensors could never achieve. They could read quantum entanglement signatures, detect minute changes in spatial dynamics, and predict complex system behaviors with unprecedented accuracy. Where the Krelvax relied on mathematical precision, the human Zorak alliance understood warfare as a complex, adaptive intelligence. The first wave of defense came quickly. Krelvax automated defense platforms erupted from hidden quantum-folded spaces, their weapon systems designed to deliver absolute destruction. Thousands of energy projectors, each capable of destroying entire planetary bodies, unleashed their initial assault. "Incoming," Lieutenant Wong called out. But there was no fear in his voice, only focused anticipation. The human Zorak ships didn't attempt to avoid the incoming assault. Instead, they adapted. Hull materials shifted molecular structures, absorbing and redirecting energy in ways that defied conventional physics. Where traditional military doctrine would call for evasion, these vessels simply transformed. Grand Resonance Keeper Zorakal, connected to the fleet through a complex neural network, communicated a strategy that was equal parts scientific analysis and emotional intelligence. "We are not here to destroy." His communication resonated through the network. "We are here to demonstrate the fundamental limitations of their understanding." Each engagement revealed more about the nature of the conflict. The Krelvax understood warfare as a pure mathematical equation, a balance of resources, weapon capabilities, tactical positioning. The Human-Zorak Alliance understood it as a living, breathing system driven by creativity, emotional depth, and collective intelligence. Emma watched as their first major offensive took shape. Quantum communication networks allowed for tactical coordination that transcended traditional command structures. Individual ships became nodes in a living, thinking network. Integrated AI systems could make tactical decisions faster than any biological command structure. The Krelvax defensive platforms began to fail in ways that defied their mathematical models. Weapon systems redirected themselves. Communication networks became unpredictable. The very fabric of their technological superiority began to unravel. "Target identified," Lieutenant Wong announced. A primary Krelvax defensive nexus, a massive space station that had been considered the pinnacle of their defensive capabilities, suddenly found itself surrounded by a complex web of adaptive ships. The attack was not about destruction. It was about demonstration. Within moments, the defensive nexus experienced a systematic failure that went beyond traditional understanding. Quantum communication networks disrupted its core operational systems. Adaptive energy fields redirected its primary weapon systems, a structure that represented the technological apex of Krelvax military design became nothing more than a drifting piece of complex machinery. "We are showing them the true meaning of warfare," Emma communicated through the neural network. Her words carried the weight of lost researchers, of her daughter Lily, of every life taken in the initial attack. The battle for the Krelvax home systems was not a traditional military engagement. It was a philosophical confrontation between two fundamentally different approaches to existence. Where the Krelvax saw the universe as a mathematical problem to be solved, the Human-Zorak Alliance saw it as a complex, living system to be understood and respected. As the first wave of the final campaign concluded, the galaxy watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. The Human-Zorak Alliance had done more than win a military engagement. They had revealed an entirely new approach to interstellar conflict, one driven by collaborative intelligence, emotional depth, and an understanding that true strength comes from adaptation, not rigid mathematical precision. The final assault came with a precision that defied traditional understanding of warfare. Above the Krelvax prime world, space itself seemed to bend and twist, creating a complex tapestry of quantum disruption and adaptive warfare. Emma Thompson stood at the central command interface, her neural networks fully integrated with the ship's living systems. Each movement, each thought, became part of a larger collective intelligence that stretched across the entire Human-Zorak fleet. "We are approaching the final engagement zone," announced Lieutenant Sarah Chen, her voice calm despite the magnitude of the moment. The Krelvax prime world hung below, a complex planetary system of geometric precision. Massive energy shields surrounded the planet, designed to repel any conventional attack. Defensive platforms covered every possible approach vector. Generations of mathematical warfare preparation had created what the Krelvax believed was an impenetrable fortress. They were wrong. The first wave of the assault was not an attack, but a demonstration. Quantum communication networks began to systematically dismantle the planet's defensive capabilities. Energy shields flickered and failed in ways that defied mathematical prediction. Defensive platforms found their own systems turned against them, a living intelligence that moved faster than any program response. Grand Resonance Keeper Zorakal, connected to the fleet through a complex neural network, communicated a strategy that was equal parts scientific analysis and emotional resolution. "We are here to show the consequence of thoughtless destruction." His communication resonated through the network. Each ship in the fleet moved with a fluidity that challenged the very concept of space combat. Hull materials adapted, redirected energy, healed damage in microseconds. Where traditional military doctrine would call for rigid formations, these vessels danced, anticipating, redirecting, absorbing threats in ways that seemed to violate known physical laws. Emma's neural interface carried more than tactical information. It carried the memories of every researcher lost at Horizon 9. Of Lily, each tactical decision was a tribute, a moment of remembrance. The Krelvax leadership watched in growing horror as their most sophisticated defense systems became irrelevant. Weapon platforms that had taken generations to develop became nothing more than complex debris. Communication networks collapsed. Their entire system of mathematical warfare was being systematically dismantled. "Primary defensive node neutralized," Lieutenant Chen announced. But it was more than a simple tactical update. It was the moment when the Krelvax understood the true nature of their defeat. This was not about destruction. This was about demonstrating a fundamental limitation in their understanding of existence. Zorak biocommunication networks provided insights that went beyond traditional intelligence gathering. They could read the very fabric of quantum reality, detect minute changes in spatial dynamics, and predict complex system behaviors with unprecedented accuracy. The assault lasted less than 3 standard hours. By its conclusion, the Krelvax primary defensive system, a network that had been considered invincible, was nothing more than a complex memory. Preparing for final engagement, Emma communicated through the neural network. Her words carried the weight of every life lost, every researcher murdered, every moment of grief transformed into collective determination. The Krelvax leadership was systematically isolated, not destroyed, captured, prepared for a tribunal that would become a defining moment in galactic history. Each leader would be forced to understand the true consequence of their actions. Orbital platforms that had once been weapons of war became sites of judgment. The very systems the Krelvax had used to murder researchers would now be used to hold them accountable. "We are not seeking revenge," Emma explained during a critical moment of the engagement. "We are seeking understanding. We are showing that true strength comes from adaptability, from collective intelligence, from the ability to transform pain into something meaningful." As the final defensive systems failed, the Krelvax prime world lay exposed, not destroyed, not annihilated, but completely and utterly neutralized. The galaxy watched. Other species observed a new model of conflict resolution, one that went beyond destruction, that demonstrated the power of collaborative intelligence. The Human-Zorak Alliance had done more than win a military engagement. They had revealed an entirely new approach to interstellar conflict, driven by emotional depth, scientific understanding, and a profound respect for the complexity of existence. In the silence that followed, Emma Thompson understood that this was more than a victory. This was a transformation. The Galactic Tribunal convened on a neutral station constructed specifically for this historic moment. Representatives from over 200 sentient species gathered to witness the most significant judicial proceeding in recorded galactic history. Emma Thompson stood at the center of the proceedings, no longer just a scientist or a grieving mother, but a symbol of a fundamental transformation in interstellar relations. The Krelvax leadership sat in quantum suppression fields, their once proud technological superiority reduced to nothing more than a cautionary tale. "This is not about punishment," Emma began, her voice carrying through multiple translation networks. "This is about understanding." The station itself was a marvel of collaborative engineering. Human adaptive technologies merged with Zorak bioarchitectural designs created a space that was both functional and living. Quantum communication networks allowed for simultaneous translation, ensuring that every nuance of the proceedings could be understood by every species present. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez presented the comprehensive evidence, Not just a record of destruction, but a detailed analysis of the Krulvax's systematic approach to xenocide. Each piece of evidence was more than a historical document. It was a lesson in the dangers of viewing existence as a mathematical equation devoid of emotional complexity. The Krulvax leaders watched in growing horror as their entire philosophical approach was dismantled. Their belief in mathematical precision, in the superiority of cold calculation, was revealed as a fundamental weakness. Every strategic decision, every attack, was shown to be a result of a limited understanding of existence. "You believed warfare was about mathematical efficiency," Emma explained. "We demonstrated that true strength comes from adaptation, from emotional intelligence, from the ability to transform pain into something meaningful." The human Zorak alliance had become more than a military force. They were now the primary peacekeeping organization in known space. Their approach was revolutionary. Conflict resolution that went beyond traditional military doctrine, that understood the complex interplay of scientific understanding, emotional intelligence, and collaborative potential. Zorak biocommunication networks provided insights that transformed diplomatic relations. They could read subtle emotional signatures, detect the complex motivations behind political decisions, and predict potential conflicts before they could emerge. The Krulvax leadership was not executed. They were transformed. Each would spend the remainder of their existence in educational programs designed to help them understand the complex nature of interstellar existence. They would become students, learning the very lessons they had once sought to destroy through violence. Memorial centers were established across multiple worlds, not as monuments of grief, but as living museums of understanding. Each center told the story of the researchers lost at Horizon 9, of the collaborative potential that emerged from profound loss. "We are creating a new model of galactic interaction," Emma told the assembled representatives. "One that understands that true strength comes from collaboration, from the ability to transform pain into collective understanding." The technological advances that emerged from the conflict were unprecedented. Adaptive communication networks that could bridge seemingly incompatible biological systems, quantum transportation technologies that redefine the concept of distance, medical technologies that could heal not just physical wounds, but the deeper scars of cultural conflict. Every species in the galaxy understood that something fundamental had changed. The human Zorak alliance had demonstrated a new approach to existence, one that valued adaptation over rigidity, emotional intelligence over mathematical precision. Research facilities that had once been potential targets became centers of collaborative exploration. The very technologies developed for warfare were now being redirected toward understanding, toward healing, toward expanding the collective knowledge of sentient existence. Emma Thompson looked out at the assembled representatives. She thought of Lily, of the researchers lost at Horizon 9. Their loss had not been in vain. It had become the catalyst for a fundamental transformation in how sentient species understood themselves and each other. The memorial to the lost researchers became more than a simple monument. It was a living testament to the power of collaborative intelligence. Each year, representatives from across the galaxy would gather, would remember, would recommit to the principles of mutual understanding. "We are not defined by our capacity for destruction," Emma concluded. "We are defined by our ability to transform, to understand, to grow." As the tribunal concluded, the galaxy watched. A new chapter of existence had begun, not through conquest, not through destruction, but through the profound understanding that true strength comes from the ability to see beyond our own limitations. The legacy of Horizon 9 would be remembered not as a moment of loss, but as the beginning of a new understanding of what it means to be a sentient, spacefaring civilization.